when ideas became dangerous. There are moments in history when ideas become more powerful than armies, when words, written in books and whispered in salons, begin to shake the foundations of entire nations. This is the story of such a moment, a time when philosophy ignited revolution, when ordinary people rose against centuries of power, when hope turned into chaos and chaos into terror. This is the story of the French Revolution, a revolution that began with ideals of liberty and ended with the blade of the guillotine. Before the revolution, France was one of the most powerful kingdoms in Europe. At its head was Louis XVI, a monarch who inherited a nation in crisis. On the surface, France appeared strong, but beneath that surface, it was collapsing. The economy was in ruins, the government was drowning in debt, and the people were suffering. French society was divided into three estates: the first estate, the clergy, the second estate, the nobility, and the third estate, everyone else: peasants, workers, merchants, the middle class. The third estate made up over 95% of the population, yet they carried the heaviest burden. They paid the most taxes, they had the least power, and they had the least voice. While the people struggled, ideas were spreading, new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing the world. This was the age of the Enlightenment. Philosophers began to question everything: authority, tradition, power. Thinkers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued that power should come from the people. Others like Voltaire challenged the church and monarchy. These ideas spread quickly through books, pamphlets, discussions, and they began to change how people thought. France's financial crisis made everything worse. Years of war, including support for the American Revolution, had drained the treasury. The government needed money desperately, so they turned to the people. More taxes, more pressure, more anger. But the Third Estate had reached its limit. In 1789, the king made a decision. He called for a meeting of the Estates General, a political assembly that had not met in over 170 years. Each estate would have a voice, but there was a problem. Each estate had one vote, which meant the first and second estates could outvote the third. Again, the people saw this as injustice, and they refused to accept it. The Third Estate took a bold step. They declared themselves the National Assembly, the true representatives of the people. They vowed to create a new constitution, a new system, a new France. This was not just reform. This was revolution. Locked out of their meeting hall, the members gathered in a tennis court, and there they made a promise. They would not disband until they had created a constitution. This became known as the tennis court oath, a moment of unity, defiance, determination. Tension spread across Paris. Fear, uncertainty, anger. Then, on July 14, 1789, everything exploded. A crowd marched to the Bastille, a prison, a symbol of royal power. They stormed it, captured it, destroyed it. The storming of the Bastille, it was more than an attack. It was a message. The revolution had begun. As the revolution spread, old systems began to collapse. Feudal privileges were abolished. Noble power weakened. Rights expanded. The National Assembly introduced reforms, new laws, new ideas, and for a moment, it seemed like the revolution was working. One of the most important documents of the revolution was created: the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. It proclaimed liberty, equality, freedom. It was inspired by Enlightenment ideals, and it changed everything, at least in theory. But the king remained. Louis XVI was still in power, and many questioned his loyalty to the revolution. Tension grew, trust faded, and then he made a mistake. In 1791, the king attempted to escape, to flee France, to seek support, but he was caught, returned, exposed. This moment changed everything. The people no longer saw him as a leader, but as a traitor. The monarchy was abolished. France became a republic. Power shifted. Radical groups gained influence. And the revolution took a darker turn. Among the revolutionaries, new leaders emerged, more extreme, more determined. One of them was Maximilien Robespierre, a man driven by ideals, but also by fear and control. Then came the most infamous phase, the Reign of Terror, a time of paranoia, suspicion, violence. Thousands were executed, enemies of the revolution, or those accused of being enemies. Trials were quick, punishments final. The guillotine became a symbol of justice and fear. In 1793, Louis XVI was executed, a king brought down by his own people. It marked a point of no return. The revolution had consumed its past. The terror did not stop. It grew. Even revolutionaries became targets. Accusations spread. Trust vanished. Fear ruled, and the revolution began to destroy itself. Eventually, the tide turned. Even Maximilien Robespierre was no longer safe. He was arrested, tried, executed. The terror ended, but the damage remained. France was changed. Forever, the old system was gone, but stability was fragile. Power shifted again, and from the chaos, a new figure would rise. The French Revolution reshaped the world. It spread ideas, inspired movements, changed governments. But it also showed something important, that revolutions are unpredictable. They can begin with hope and end in fear. The French Revolution was not just a fight for freedom. It was a test of ideas, of power, of humanity. Because when people demand change, history listens, but it does not always respond gently. The revolution began with ideas, but it was remembered for the price it paid to defend them.